It's not a measuring stick game. It's not a playoff tune-up. It is about what Clemson football is going to do in the future.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, and that is truly because of those of you out there, the everydayers, if you will, those of you who are with us Monday through Friday every single week. And if you're not yet one of those, well, then make sure you hit that follow and that subscribe so you never miss another episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Again, this game is not a measuring stick game. It's not a playoff tune-up. It is football for Clemson in a crossroads, and it's kind of the end of the 2025 season, the start of the 2026 season, and we'll talk about what it means and what Clemson's going to do next and what we're seeing so far, because the Pinstripe Bowl against Penn State could have been so much more, but it wasn't. You know, we're talking about snow, we're talking about Clemson, we're talking about the opt-outs and the injuries, and we're talking about Penn State and all of the changes. But one thing we're not talking about is the playoffs or getting into a national championship game, which is what both fan bases were looking forward to at the start of this season. We're going to start the show, or at least finish the show, talking about Saturdays and what this game Saturday, and talk about what I'm looking for specifically from Garrett Riley. In segment 2, we're going to talk about what really this bowl is meaning between, purgatory of what I like to call it, of 2025 and 2026. But first, we're going to start with the biggest question, I believe, from this offseason, starting with this game and then after this game. And what is Dabo Swinney really going to do? How is he really going to handle this team, this roster, how he manages the team, how he manages the roster and the transfer portal and high school recruiting in the new era of college football, the new era of Dabo Swinney? Is all this discussion just fooling ourselves and we're just wasting our breath? For Clemson's first real portal class, which was this season, with Will Helt at defensive end, Jeremiah Alexander at linebacker, and Tristan Smith at wide receiver. Now, Dabo will joke, in the past, he's joked about how he's used the transfer portal before, and he has, but not like what you and I have always been asking for, especially once the transfer portal became more widely used. Clemson basically has been a non-participant until 2025. And the thing is, the first real portal class actually worked. And it should change everything, whether Dabo Swinney really wants to do it or not. It worked, and we want more of it. Something happened this year that a lot of people really never thought would happen, or really remember around this time last year. Clemson used the transfer portal, and it wasn't like that it maybe worked. It wasn't like that it was just a moral victory or some clipboard holding players on the sideline that are going to just become graduate assistant coaches. No, it worked outside of a moral victory. It worked because the players contributed to this team, and they arguably could have contributed more if the staff got out of their way. Outside of Will Helt, Tristan Smith took him a long time to gain that trust. But once he did, he did make some plays. He seemed to kind of have a little bit of fire. Jeremiah Alexander took him a while to build the trust, but building towards being a starter. Will Helt was not just a contributor. He was, the best defensive player on the team, or maybe one of the best, top 3, if you could say that. I mean, Avion Terrell had a great season. Sammy Brown had a great season. Will Helt right up there with the best defensive player on the Clemson team. Now, Tristan Smith wasn't the best wide receiver, and later on in the season, he started to drop some balls that were kind of frustrating. But he had a little bit of fire that they needed early season. Jeremiah Alexander is not the best in pursuit, but again, had that work ethic that they needed. When they came in, those guys did not ruin the culture. They were improvements to the team, real improvements. Maybe not massive improvements outside of Will Helt, but it matters because you remember the fear was for years that these guys would come into the Clemson locker room and ruin the culture. They did not ruin the culture. They actually fit into the culture. They actually embraced what Clemson was about and wanted to wear the orange, wanted to be better for Clemson, for Dabo, and for the fan base. And they made the team better. And that is why that this season, and now this Saturday being the end of this season, should also be the turning point for 2026. It's not just about philosophy anymore. It's not just about fans being fanatical and just wanting to keep up with the Joneses. It's not that. It's not just about even some people discredit the portal talk because it's like, well, you don't have the money. You can't go out and get everybody. You can get more than 3. We all have to admit that. If you're still a portal naysayer, you have to admit that Clemson can get more than 3 portal players. So it's not just about money or philosophy or fan base wants and demands. It is about necessity. Necessity because Clemson needs to replenish what they are losing. They are losing a lot of players to the NFL. They're losing a lot of players to the transfer portal. They have lost a few guys in the recruiting world where they decommitted to Clemson, and Clemson did not replenish. And so those are true signs. And if Dabo needs any better of a sign than that, those are the signs. He cannot sign more high school freshmen for this situation. The 2026 class is done. They've signed. The roster gaps are there. They're obvious. Safety, corner, defensive end, offensive line, running back, quarterback. I mean, I'm not naming 1 or 2. That's the problem too. It is everywhere because it is now a necessity. Quarterback could be the biggest one, could be the elephant in the room. Maybe it is the elephant in the room. For me, they need someone better than Cade Klubnik, period. That doesn't mean that, Cade wasn't serviceable. It means that he wasn't the answer that that Clemson needed to get to the playoffs. And I don't buy Christopher Vezina. I'm not buying stock in Christopher Vezina right now. I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm talking about him as a player. The argument for using him, I'm not buying it because he could not be the guy that pushed Cade to the next level. He could not be the guy that beat Cade out. He did not do those things. And I'm not buying stock in Chris Denson. That is a dream. What we've seen is Chris Denson has great legs. Christopher Vezina has better arm. But if you could bring them together, that would be hybrid player would be what you want. But you can't do that. The real question is not if Clemson needs to take portal players. We've already answered that. They need to take portal players. How aggressive will they be in 2026? Hope is not a strategy anymore. Just barely dipping your toe in the water, no longer a strategy. Dabo hopefully has learned from this season, and the portal becomes a real tool to him to use to replenish his roster. If the program keeps doing what it's always been doing, that's going to be good. But what we're seeing is the competition is catching up and surpassing them. And they're not going to bring fear to teams in the ACC, and that is a scary moment. Clemson maybe could spend a lot of money going after a high-profile quarterback. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But if they don't, then they need to go after a middle-of-the-pack quarterback and maybe then really replenish their offensive line and defensive lines. But the problem is that Dabo and his staff has gotten him to a point where he needs a little bit of help on every single position, maybe outside of wide receiver, tight end. He needs a little bit of help in every single position. And that's a little bit of a concern right now for Clemson for 2026. When we come back to Locked On Clemson segment 2, we're going to talk about the bowl game and why a lot of people are trying to turn it into something it's not. I'll tell you what I really think about it right here on segment 2. Hey, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. What makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting is that you're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift on you. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, momentum flips after a turnover. I mean, there are so many things that go on in a game. When you think about the games this past weekend for the 49ers or the Jaguars or whoever it may be, FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads, money lines, they adjust instantly. You can bet the next touchdown scorer, drive results, totals, and more. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our new Every Dayer Club. You get access to audio or ad-free audio all for Locked On Clemson, whether you're listening to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast app. No ads. And you can be a part of the Locked On Everydayer Discord server where you can talk about your team and get into the group chat. Go over to lockedonclemson.supercast.com to learn more, or you can tap the link in the show notes to learn more as well. And thank you so much to the everydayers out there that stick with me Monday through Friday and even during the holidays, as you can tell. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. This is the Christmas Eve show. Hopefully you're enjoying it, and hopefully you're eating well and enjoying some time with your family and enjoying some of these football games as we get ready for the game Saturday. The Pinstripe Bowl has been debated amongst some of the message boards about how much of a measuring stick is it really. To me, it's not a measuring stick at all. And that would be bad news for you and me if we started to go down that path. To me, it is football purgatory. It's being sold nationally as the Underachievers Bowl. And honestly, I don't disagree with that. Clemson and Penn State were playoff teams. They had playoff expectations. They had national championship expectations. A lot of superstars, a lot of guys returning, veteran quarterbacks, and seasoned head coaches. And now they're playing at noon in the snow, freezing weather, in a stadium that is going to be half full with a half full roster on both sides. I'm not trying to insult either team. I'm not trying to insult Clemson or Penn State because I think both these teams in a normal situation would be extremely fun to watch. And the game is probably still going to be fun to watch just because it's our teams, you know. But the reality is that it's both teams that are kind of in that purgatory. It's not the 2025 team, and it's not the 2026 team. They're just kind of in limbo with a lot of opt-outs, a lot of injuries. Every day or every other day, it seems like we hear someone else is going to prepare for the draft, and they're just going to, forego any more games, and they're going to prepare for the NFL. Or we hear a new person saying, practice didn't go well, reps aren't going well. They're going to go ahead and transfer and get into another team for 2026. The rosters are not full rosters. The starting lineups are not starting lineups based on what we've seen this season. You don't have even a full coaching staff because Clemson still has some question marks here and there about what they're going to do in the offseason. Penn State has a new head coach, but he hasn't been installed yet. And so they're using an interim. And so there's still a lot of question marks and a lot of turmoil and change that's going to happen for both teams. Maybe more for Penn State than Clemson. So no, this game does not tell you what 2026 is going to be about. It's not going to tell you a recap of 2025 either. It's not going to tell you which team is really better or can be better in the future. Anyone who treats this game like that is just setting themselves up for disappointment, fooling themselves. The matchup itself is going to be, I think, a battle. I've heard our friend Eric McLean say that he believes Clemson is, quote, obviously the better team. Respectfully, Eric, I have a hard time. I mean, maybe it's just me being the nervous fan that I am, and those of you listening and watching can talk me off the ledge here, because you always have to do. That's the way I do it during the season. But that's the kind of fan I am. But I don't agree that Clemson is obviously the better team. Penn State wants to run the football, and that is their strength. And Clemson is missing key defensive pieces that should be able to stop something like that, but are not going to be there. That's not a great recipe. If Clemson is missing key defensive pieces up front, and those backups and those replacements and those bare bones guys can't step up to the occasion, well, that's not going to be very good, because that's their strength going against now possibly a weakness. So that's where I have a concern. How is Clemson going to stop a downhill running game from Katron Allen with backups and rotational guys and guys who rarely got to see much of the ball or much time? I don't see it. I get worried about that. So no, to me, there's nothing obvious about Clemson winning this game or being the better team. It's a brand game. You got two big names, a historic venue, one more chance for some of these seniors and some of these last time guys to make a mark on TV during the holidays for their college team. And that does still matter. The exposure matters. Finishing the season strong does matter in a lot of ways. Momentum, I do believe, carries on to off the field, but it's not something that you can put in a true data set. This is not something that we can really, really hang our hats on as if the team wins, they're going to have a better 2026 season than the other team that lost. Because this is not a measuring stick for either team. Clemson football is kind of existing in an area of the in-between, the upside down, if you will, between what it was, which was a disappointment. Same thing for Penn State, but what it was in 2025 is a disappointment. What it hopes to be in 2026, which is a playoff team again. But a lot has to be improved for this team to really get to that level where you can trust that they will be able to make it back to the playoffs. And, this team is going to have to find life after Cade Klubnik, life after Woods and Parker, and life after Adam Randall, life after Avion Terrell. There's a lot of questions on both sides of the ball. And Dabo, in a lot of ways, has made his own bed with this. He's allowed his staff to continue replenishing through the high school ranks, and it hasn't been kind to him as it used to be in the past. And so now he's going to have to adjust. Not by, in my opinion, wanting to, because if it was up to Dabo, I don't think he would really want to adjust to the level of execution or use of the transfer portal as he's going to have to. But yeah, this game is going to be fun because for me as a Clemson fan, I just want to see Clemson play, man. I want to see Clemson play, whether it's volleyball, softball, football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is. I want to see my favorite team play. I want to see them also put on a good product as well. And that's why we'll talk about what I'm really looking at, who I'm really looking at in segment 3 for this Saturday. So that's the only thing that's left to be said for this show is who I'm really looking for right here. Locked on Clemson. Hang with me. Segment 3. We'll talk about that one person, and his name is Garrett Riley. Saturday is about Garrett Riley. Nothing else, because, for the past month, we've heard so many rumors and quote sources from everybody saying that he's out of here. He was on the first train out first jet out, I guess you could say, looking for a job as a head coach somewhere else. And that was heating up. The word was getting around. Multiple teams was looking for him. He was looking to interview. And then really, I never heard much more after that. Those couple of articles came out. And so it seems as if Garrett Riley was just going through the same motions. His name may be thrown in the hat here and there, but Garrett Riley, I don't think ever had any doubt that he would continue being the offensive coordinator for Clemson. So considering that, Clemson is going to bank on Garrett Riley again, I believe that shows us what we think about Cade may be true and what the staff thinks about Cade as well. Cade means well. Cade did his best. Cade's getting his last shot to play in a Clemson uniform, but he also hurt this team on offense in a lot of his decision-making. And so he hurt the play calling in a lot of the ways as well. So I'm curious how Garrett Riley will do without Cade Klubnik as his quarterback. Unfortunately, though, some of it does fall on Garrett, because Cade was a guy he had for majority of his college career, and he couldn't make him better. He couldn't make him get what I said at the beginning of the season, 10% better. You realize if Cade had been 10% better, he probably would have won the Heisman. Just 10% better. He would have had 40 touchdowns and 4,000 yards passing, and probably had another season going to the ACC championship game and possibly into the playoffs. So he would have been the flashy option at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. What I'm walking away from in this game is not a win or a lose. What I want to walk away from is to be able to say, I trust Garrett Riley in calling plays and scheming and being able to put out a offense that has some sort of identity. Because that's what Clemson needs going forward. We've seen a lot of wishy-washiness from the offensive play calling, but we've also seen wishy-washiness, if you will, from the quarterback and from the offensive line and from the rotation at running back. So there's just not a lot of consistency, and I want to see more consistency. Clemson needs to show out this Saturday in a sense of just showing that they have an identity, showing that they've made a good game plan, and they're not just going to go and do a bunch of 3-and-outs and lay a massive egg. If you just focus on the win or lose, though, that would be a trap. It's more than just winning or losing. It's more than just enjoying the game, more than just the seniors won last time. To me, I want to see if the offense makes sense, because Garrett Riley needs to put together a plan. Now, again, it is still Cade Klubnik out there, so there's that. But I don't want to walk away from this game shaking my head even more to figure out, how this offense is going to find their rhythm. I mean, this is another opportunity for Riley, even though it's not ranking-wise a great win or record-wise a great win, but this is another opportunity to actually have a good win against a team with a good brand, and not just another ACC team. Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik have struggled overall to win the biggest games of their season. Is this one the biggest game of the season? In some ways, maybe. They're going to have to do more with less this season, this game. And so that kind of puts more strain on the offensive play calling. They have to avoid hurting themselves, operate in a rhythm, and put Cade Klubnik in the best position to be successful, which is not something that we can always trust. The cold weather really doesn't concern me, though. A lot of people are also talking about that. Had a couple people, suggest the play calling will be different based on that. And maybe it is, but the snow doesn't really bother me. Cade's mindset and him doing the plays that are run bothers me. Situational football decisions bother me. Third down decisions, red zone play calling bothers me. Moments where the game needs to slow down, Garrett Riley has to find a way to help Cade get to his playmakers in the right moments. I want to see the offense that looks organized, that looks purposeful, that looks like something that you can trust going into 2026. It's not because of just winning this game or not. Even if they lose the game, it's really about that trust level. We keep talking about the coaching staff needs to trust the players or these new players that get on the team. Well, hey, how about the coaching staff? The fan base needs to show, the coaching staff needs to show the fan base some trust as well. Some things that they can trust as well. Margin of victory, not that big a deal for me this weekend. Being competent, maybe the best way to put it. If not, if they look like there's no identity and they don't really know what they're doing, then that leads the offensive pressure and my chirping to get even louder at the end or after this game. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you are listening and you're not over on YouTube, to put in the comments, you can go to YouTube and subscribe if you want, or you can go over on X at the Morgan T Show and give me a shout over there. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Clemson. Tomorrow's show is the Christmas show. And I'm trying to work out hooking up with the Penn State, Locked On Penn State guy, so we can maybe talk about the game either tomorrow or Friday. But if not, we'll still continue to preview this weekend's bowl game. Make sure you subscribe and follow to Locked On Clemson so you get all the latest episodes, and follow me over on X at the Morgan T Show. If you need a last-minute holiday gift, well, you're running out of time, but you can go over and get the Everydayer Club, ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and much more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedonclemson.supercast.com or in the show notes. For those of you watching on video, you're going to now check out the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, take a moment, if you have time, to go make your second listen, Locked On College Football. And as always, Tiger fans, hey, Merry Christmas. Hopefully you got that one gift you really, really wanted. And I will see you tomorrow, and I'll see you at the top of the hill.